All right, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Sales Vitamin Podcast. We have got a classic edition coming up today. We've got Jeff Bajorek, and you know him as Rethink the Way You Sell. When you see his podcast also is The Why and the Buy. He co-hosts that with Christy Walters, but we've got him today. We're honored to have him because his stuff is unique, and he's at the top of the game in this profession. So thanks for being on with us, Jeff.
Humbled. I don't know if I've ever been told that I'm at the top of the game. I thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet. You bet. So Rethink the Way You Sell. Tell the listeners, where did you come up with that? Rethink the Way You Sell, and what's the background? I know you spent over a decade in the field, but give the listeners your background and kind of how you came about Rethink the Way You Sell.
So I started in sales reluctantly, actually. I got a degree in sports medicine. I worked on the sidelines at a high school as a certified athletic trainer, and then in a hospital at a physical therapy clinic. And I've always liked athletics. I love the way things work. And the human body is the most fascinating machine I've ever studied. And so found my passion there. Was a pretty good athlete, certainly a well above average athlete. Probably could have played college baseball somewhere, but I wasn't going to go pro in that. So I made a decision when I was 17 to do something different. But, I kind of fell into professional selling reluctantly, like I mentioned, because basically I was just dissatisfied with my position at the hospital. I had commitments to the school through the summer. It's some cross training programs, summer training programs for some of the student athletes there, and so I knew I wasn't going to go back for the fall, but I had to give my notice to my employer with some courtesy, right? And 2 weeks
Yeah.
professional courtesy is one thing, but I told them the fall before. I said, I'm not doing this again. Like, I'll finish the year. That's fine. So they came to me in May and they said, well, you got to give us a letter. Like, are you serious about not coming back? I said, yeah. And they said, well, can you write a letter? And I was like, oh, that's right. This is a big boy job. I don't just have to, tell my manager I'm not coming back. So I said, hold on. And I went and they had a letter of resignation on their desk, by the end of the day. So they announced at the staff meeting that I'm leaving that week. And a lady that was seated next to me, her desk was right next to mine. She said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. And you give someone 4 months notice, it's too early to look for a job, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm good at what I do. There are other hospital systems out there who will put me in a slightly different position. So I'll figure something out. She said, why don't you try selling? I said, no. I said, no, thanks. We had just had another colleague who left, and he was that prototypical sales guy.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, no, he's going to do great, but that's not me. And Rose, to her credit, she said, Jeff, I got you an interview. Dust off your resume, send it to this guy. Just, what are you going to do? But look, if you don't want it, then fine. But you owe it to yourself to take the interview. So we went through the summer and I touched base with this guy. And finally it was kind of end of July. And he said, I'd like to offer you the job. And I said, thank you. I don't know if I'm your guy.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know anything about business. I don't know anything about sales cycles. I mean, like, I like buying stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
He said, here's the thing. He said, Jeff, here's the thing. You're a good person. You're a hard worker. You speak the language. Now, this was a job in medical device sales, orthopedic medical device sales. So, essentially the people I was working with would turn into my customers, right? So there's familiarity.
Yeah.
And he said, Jeff, I've talked to everybody that I know who would be your customer, who knows you, and they all told me without hesitation to hire you. He's like, I can teach you the rest. And I said, okay, we'll give this a year. And if I hate it, I'll go back. 10 and a half months later, I was ready to hang it up.
Yeah.
And two things happened. A mentor, someone who could mentor me, joined our organization. And this is important to the Rethink the Way You Sell
Yeah.
question. Someone who was available to become my mentor joined the organization. He knew how to sell, but didn't have any relationships. I had access because I had almost 11 months worth of, existing business and stuff like that to maintain. I had access, but had no idea how to sell. And so the two of us became fast friends, spent a lot of time together, quite frankly, drank a lot of beer together after sales calls to do the coaching part of the leadership, right?
Yeah.
Did you notice what happened when you said this? Did you notice her reaction when you said this? What's next kind of thing. So that happened. That was number one. Number two, I left a sales meeting and someone recommended that I pick up Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Red Book of Selling. And I had $20 burning a hole in my pocket and a Borders books to date myself on the way home from that meeting. And I picked it up. And so all of a sudden, I had someone who could show me the ropes, and I had Gitomer kind of figuratively yelling at me through the book about take responsibility, figure it out, do it your own way. And, through that through those couple of years, actually, I realized that selling was not this thing that people did. I didn't have to change the way I did. I didn't have to change who I was as a person to become a salesperson, which is why I was so resistant to Rose initially when she recommended I get into selling. But that if I thought about what needed to be done and brought my own self to the interaction, I could have a whole lot more success. And that's what started happening. And so today, when I see so many people who are in similar, listen, I was where so many people are today. Tell me how to do it. I want to get the answers on the test correct. Tell me how to do it. I really want to be good at this, but I just don't know. It feels so awkward and I'm kind of stuck in between. It's like, no, hold on. What are you trying to accomplish? What is the problem you're trying to solve? You have, you have tools at your disposal to solve those problems. What's the right tool for this situation? Think about it. They say when you have a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail.
That's right.
Well, so, if you're just running around with a hammer looking for the best way to use that hammer, or even worse, the best hammer to use, you are willing to pay for the best hammer to use, right? People forget that the right tool sometimes is a pair of pliers or a screwdriver or, a pry bar to pull out the nail that someone else hammered in the wrong place, right? So, um, Rethink the Way You Sell came in during a branding exercise a few years ago. And we were just thinking about, like, what is it that you do, Jeff? What is it that you do that's different than some other people out there? And my strategy has always been to stop and think, to the point where it's been detrimental in the past. Like, you can overthink on the golf course, on the ball field, on the basketball court, and even in several crisis situations, you can overthink the correct answer. But thinking has, on the whole, served me very, very well. And when you can stop thinking about what you're supposed to do and start thinking about what needs to be done, if you can rethink the way you sell, you'll sell a whole lot more. You make a whole lot more friends. You'll feel a lot better doing it. You'll make some customers for life, and some that won't even let you go, or some that won't ever let you go. So that's where that comes from. That might be a long-winded answer to your question, John, but that's the last 15 years to date for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's two things that you talked about that I want to get into specifically. And one of them's your book, The Five Forgotten Fundamentals of Prospecting. I thought the title's fantastic, and I've read it. Really, really good. The other thing is the workbook that comes with that. So I'm going to encourage all my listeners, get to the website, download this ebook, get that book, and go through that workbook because it's good. But you talked about, you went through that part of rethinking the way, so kind of branding and how, what do you do? And that's part of that workbook that you send everybody. It's pretty powerful stuff. But in your ebook, there's this statement, and you said, time wasted by uselessly debating the most effective prospecting mode is better spent actually doing the work. Get in front of people who can say yes to you. Let's talk about that, because that's a big thing today, I guess, almost a buzzword if you wanted to call it on. You call it the mode versus the message in the book. But let's talk about that. Why do you think that's at such the heart of what's of the prospecting piece?
You need to know what you do, and you need to know how you help. And you need to know how what you do and how you help is different from the other people trying to do what you do and help who you help. Okay. And the message matters more than the mode. The message matters more than the medium. But the problem is and the problem for all of us, is that the mode is easy to complain about. The medium is easy to debate. Cold calling's dead. Long live cold calling. Social
Yeah.
media. We got a social sell. We got to, you know, for the longest time, it was, there was a debate. I remember this piece that I wrote years ago. I think it's probably been taken down from my blog, right? Because it was like 2 websites ago, right? This was an old piece that I wrote. And I said, what is the debate around social selling? I don't understand it. Like, why does it have, okay, so the trending hashtag of social selling, to me, what I see, the underlying principle there is meeting your prospects where they are. Is that new?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Account-based marketing, hashtag ABM. Oh, we've got specific messaging for each one of our customers. Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And okay. And my facial expressions are, we're recording this on video. I don't know if you're going to put the video out, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's coming through people's ears right now in the podcast, but like, seriously, are these earth shattering, like life altering concepts to you? You're going to find people where they hang out and you're going to give them a message that resonates specifically with them. I thought that was selling.
Yeah.
And so, when you think about all that, and then you go forward, you come into today where I have a lot of people saying, well, I can't sell face to face. I used to entertain a lot. I used to sell face to face, and now we can't get face to face. I can't travel. I can't be, in front of my customers physically. And it's like, well, but do you need to be? Was your physical presence in their space, was that the thing that made you an effective seller? Or was it the fact that you had a creative solution to a problem they had? Did you make the sale, or did your corporate credit card enable that process? Because look, if the only way you can make sales is by spending other people's money, you're in the wrong profession, bub.
Yeah.
Because those days are going, they were already trending away in the first place. The pandemic has kind of sped that up because we don't have as much face-to-face time, but
Right.
you solve problems in a way that nobody else does. And the solutions that you provide make things better for your customer. Start thinking in those processes. Start thinking along those lines. And sometimes that means that if you don't know how to connect with your customers, if you don't know how to get in front of them virtually, if you can't come up with a compelling reason for them to return your call or your email, then maybe you need to spend less time for the next week or so. Maybe you need to spend less time calling and emailing and more time thinking about the story you need to be able to tell. Right? I don't know what to say. Okay, then don't say anything. Go back to the drawing board and figure out what your talking points should be. Figure out what your differentiation points should be. And that's, to your point with the workbook, the 5 forgotten fundamentals. The first fundamental is know what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
What makes you different? What makes you valuable? And why does that matter? If you can't answer those questions, do not move on from there.
How
Like,
hard is that for the people that you deal with, the people that you talk with on a daily basis? People think that's easy. Oh, here's why we're different because, and usually what they say is some reason that everybody else says.
yeah.
And I think differentiation is really something hard to do. But if you don't go through that exercise, then you just kind of blend in.
And that is the epitome of commodity, is when you blend in with everybody else trying to do what you do. There has to be something different about you. And it's not your logo and your colors and your branding, right?
Right.
Like, and there, what's funny is, it's, if it were easier to do, more people would do it. The most difficult part about this kind of exercise, particularly with the companies that I work with in workshops and when I do keynotes and things like that, it's um, the context around where that differentiation comes from. I hear a lot of people saying, well, we care more about our customers. Just look at our metrics versus the industry average. It's like, okay, maybe there's a little bit of differentiation there, but not enough to move your average prospect's needle.
Yeah. I
Right?
see
Like,
that on every wall that I walk into.
yeah. And if you, customer is the number one priority and whatever, it's,
Yeah.
if everybody says that, like, maybe you feel that that's different, but if everybody says that, then it's not a real differentiator, right? So
Right.
typically there's some kind of intellectual property. Typically there's some kind of process I've got one client that they put their customer before profit, right? Rather than putting profit before the customer. There's a lot of people in their industry that run a profitable business and the customers end up doing really well. So it's good. There's not a knock on those people, but they flip it. And in a very personalized business, they flip it and they say, no, we put our customers first and we know that there's enough profit to go around at the end. And that resonates with people. Not everybody, but that resonates with people. And so there's little nuance to it, but it comes to the number of locations, or it comes to the intellectual property, or it comes a lot of times to the culture of the company and how enabled they are. There was a medical device manufacturer that I actually didn't represent, but I had a friend leave our company and go to this company. And he said, our customer service reps, our receptionists, the people in the customer care department, they know the product inside and out. Like they actually know these surgical implants inside and out. Like that was unheard of in the medical device industry. And the idea there was that anybody you called could answer your question, right? Well, now they're not selling implants anymore. They're selling peace of mind. They're
Right.
selling a remarkable customer experience, and so you got to have the story that you tell down. And the reason that people are uncomfortable differentiating is because that gets you closer to the edges. That makes I say, if you try to please everybody, you'll end up thrilling nobody. Well, if you try to thrill someone, there's going to be some people who don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And what are you trying to accomplish here? Because if you're trying to please everybody, you're not going to have a whole lot of fun. It's going to be a very lackluster message that won't really resonate with very many people. There'll just be a bunch of people who feel okay about it.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. But in order for me to really be superb for somebody, I have to admit that, I'm not for everybody. Some people just don't like me. That's fine.
Yeah. Is that differentiation, do you think that a individual sales professional can differentiate themselves in a way that they're more successful than the other salespeople at an organization that don't differentiate themselves, but they're selling the same product?
100%. And this is kind of a funny story. One of my pull-out quotes from the 5 Forgotten Fundamentals was, if you cannot differentiate, you cannot sell. And I thought that was clever, right? And
Yeah.
then like 2 months later, Lee Salz wrote a book called Sales Differentiation. And he says 17 ways that you can differentiate for, yourself from your competition and sell at the prices you want, right?
Yeah.
Way to go, Lee. And Lee and I are buddies.
Yeah.
I got a ton of respect for him, but like he went deep in that concept. And one of those ways that he talks about in the book is you don't just differentiate in what you sell, you differentiate in how you sell.
Right.
And, I think another reason or another way that sales reps get hung up on the differentiation point is that they think it's just about their company. They think it's just about their product, and they forget that it could be about them. They forget that it could be about the connections that they make with their prospects and with their customers, the questions that they ask. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Or are you just trying to move a product? When I was selling implants, one of my biggest customers, one of the biggest customers in the company, on a weekly basis, I was in this account, not just managing the account, but I was in the account. I was taking a look at their inventory. I was taking a look at their surgery schedule. I was communicating with the physicians, the surgeons who were using these implants, to make sure that this department in the hospital had what they needed, when they needed it, before they needed it. And I was taking a lot of, because they were understaffed and they didn't want to deal with surgeons who could occasionally be a little bit high maintenance or not quite know exactly how to communicate what they wanted. So I removed a headache for them to
Right.
help them run their business unit. And in return, they did a lot of business with me
Oh, yeah.
at a premium. Right.
Yeah.
And, that
Because
was the
there's
thing.
value in that differentiation.
There was, and I was selling at a 15% premium to the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, right? The name brand in the industry, who and the rep and I, we got along just fine. That company did not do a bad job,
Right.
but I was able to solve other problems for them that were aligned with how I could help. And because of that, I positioned myself as like the liaison, right? I was
Yeah.
like, oh, we got something. I don't know what this means. Call Jeff. Cool, I got it. And that gave me opportunity to talk to my customer and then also talk to my physician customer, which then helped my reputation within the marketplace. People move around. Like there were a lot of problems that I was solving for a lot of people, and I wasn't hung up on my product. There were some people really didn't care what the differentiators of my product were, but it worked. It was reliable. They had someone they trusted who knew what was going on to help them through situations. And I remember this day. I was there every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. I gave my notice to my manager on a Monday. That Thursday, I went in and I said, I'm done at the end of the month. And sitting there having coffee, and the lady said, oh no, what are we going to do without you?
Yeah.
And that hurt my feelings, and it made me so proud at the same time, right?
Right.
Because it's like, okay, cool. I feel bad. And I knew that going in, I was like, all right, what I play a pretty vital role here, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to leave my customers leave them hanging in the lurch. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, if they're wondering what they're going to do without me, that means I've done my job.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough sales reps think about that. I don't think they think about the problems they solve, the problems they can solve, and I don't think they think about how to become indispensable to their best accounts,
Yeah.
or to any account for that matter. Right?
Yeah.
You want people to think, what are we going to do without you?
Yeah. I think most sales training, and of course, and this goes back, this is how I was trained, was so features and benefit and product centered
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't do what you were just talking about. You didn't go in and create that trusted advisor, which you talk about in the ebook, and that ability to have that business acumen and to provide value. You learned features and benefits and throw up this PowerPoint and blah, 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 and you
Oh yeah.
commoditized yourself right out of the gate. Um, you talk about tension in the
Mm-hmm.
book. You talk about
Mm.
creating a tension. When I first read that, I was like, no, I don't know if I agree with Jeff on that. Why do I want to create tension? But as I read it, I was like, okay, now I kind of see what he's talking about. But talk the listeners through that tension. What do you mean? What are you talking about when you say you've got to create some tension?
Tension is a stimulus to act. Um, that's one of my favorite things to talk about out of that piece. Is tension is a stimulus to act. And we've been taught from the very beginning, you go back, David Sandler, you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar, and like, it was all find the pain. People are motivated by people have two prime motivators: move toward pleasure or away from pain. So if you can find pain, you can help provide a solution to eliminate it, right? And so pain is
Right.
something that creates tension. But I always thought that there was something more to it than that, because you don't buy a Rolex because you're in pain. You don't buy a Bentley because you're in pain. Like, there are luxury goods. There are really nice things that people are buying, not because they're in pain, but because they want them,
Yeah.
because they feel some kind of connection. And listen, particularly the short commutes that most of us have right now, it doesn't matter what you're driving. A car will get you from point A to point B, but there's a reason. You're looking for some kind of vanity. You're looking for some kind of ego. You're looking for some kind of recognition when you buy a premium luxury good, but there's something other than pain. And so I kind of summed it up. I said, what is it? And I said, well, it's the gap between where we are right now and where we want to be. And there has to be some kind of stimulus, something to pull you there. That's tension.
Okay.
And as the seller, I think of, I believe I can help you. I believe I can help you because I know something that you don't know yet. And I'm not holding it against you that you don't know, but it's my role as the potential trusted advisor, or as the trusted advisor, to give you this information to help get where I know you want to go. The difference between where you are right now and where you want to go is that tension. And if I can demonstrate that I know something that you don't know, and you'd be better off for knowing, you recognize you'd be better off for knowing, that little bit of, sometimes it's discomfort, sometimes it's just curiosity, is enough to get you to engage with my conversation.
Yeah.
That's tension.
Okay. Yeah, I think that when I first read it, I was like, well, I don't know if I want to create tension. But when you when you explain it that way and you kind of read it in your book that yeah, it is, you're filling that space, but you're creating that tension. What do you think right now in the sales training field or
Mhm.
and in the corporate field? People train their own sales reps, or they'll hire people like you to come in and train.
Mhm.
But when you go into these organizations, what's missing? What do you see right off the bat? If I said, "Hey, Jeff, what are 3 things that you know going into this that you're probably going to see right off the bat?"
People don't want to be in sales training. Um, People are not entirely engaged with their sales processes. Most of them don't have a sales process, let alone how to work on one
Right.
or in one. Um, they're too married to the result rather than working on a process. And I say, you focus on a process, you get results. You focus on results, you get frustrated. So I see a lot of frustrated people, and they don't think that sales training is the answer because their egos are telling them that they're good enough, that they know their stuff. And in most cases, they do. They just don't know how to position it. So when you think about sales training, I think when I come in to train a team, if it's in a workshop, if it's in a 3 or 6 month engagement where I'm just kind of doing a little coaching along the way too, it's not to tell them what it is that they need to do. It's to help them understand the context for how to use what they already know.
Yeah.
And that comes down to differentiating, targeting. What are the discovery questions you're asking to create tension? What are you doing to um, prove to your prospects or to your customers that you're someone worth talking to with something worth talking about? And that's a concept that most people I don't think about in those terms, right? Like, why should I take your call? Are you someone worth talking to? I've never heard of you before.
Right.
Okay, well, then how do I earn the right to be called or to get that call returned? And Mike Weinberg said this in a piece that he wrote recently. He's like, you realize you're building relationships with people who haven't returned your calls yet, right? Like, they're paying attention in most cases, paying attention to what you're saying and the questions you're asking. You just haven't earned the right yet. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, you're right. The more I have that's worth talking about, the more likely I will be perceived as someone worth talking to. And then when I earn that conversation and I validate the fact that I'm someone worth talking to, now I'm going to have more things that are worth talking about. And it spirals on itself,
Yeah.
right? So most people don't have the context for how to differentiate who they should be in front of and how to prove to those people that there's someone worth talking to with something worth talking about. That's prospecting in a
Yeah.
nutshell. And then the process part that leads all the way through to closing sales.
And so you've got these 5 forgotten fundamentals of prospecting that you
Mm-hmm.
talk about, but really I didn't hear you talk about in there that, oh, you got to go just make a ton of calls. The spray and pray method.
Sure.
I really see a much more of a strategic approach to your prospecting in the book, which I agree with. Is that what you found over the years that's much more effective?
I think that there is an inextricable component of math to the sales process, right? You need enough.
Right.
Now, enough is going to be different for everybody. I don't just blanket tell all my clients, okay, make 100 calls a day and you'll be good, right?
Yeah.
But so to completely separate math from the sales process that's bad. Let's not do that.
Right. Right.
To distill it to distill selling down to nothing but a numbers game. The scale is available in a lot of industries. But to distill it down to nothing but a numbers game, I think takes the heart and soul out of selling. And I think it erodes at the credibility of the profession. So, is there a certain amount of volume? Well, yeah, right. I mean, and it goes down to, the best salespeople are going to close a quarter to a third of their qualified deals. And so if your pipeline right now isn't 3 to 4 times what your number is, you need more pipeline. That
Right.
means you need to add math,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You
Okay.
need the science part of that.
But if you have enough opportunities, they're just not, if you're not closing 25 to 30% of your deals, there's something else we can fix. And that's where the art comes in. That's where the fun happens.
Right.
Now, look, if you're closing enough deals to hit your number, then let's make sure you keep doing that. Let's make sure that your pipeline looks good enough so you can continue to forecast that you're going to close those kinds of deals. But if you don't have that, we need to make sure that you're getting it. Math is a crucial component. To be hung up on the volume of the metrics and the KPIs and things like that. I'm not interested in the KPIs of how many calls you made. I'm interested in the result. I'm interested in, is the activity that you're working on right now, is it strategic enough to find the right people?
Yeah.
I've got a client right now. They actually have too much volume. And I've seen this happen in more than one industry where it's all about, I need new leads, new leads, new leads, new leads, where everybody's looking for low hanging fruit and they're not following through with any opportunities. So you end up with this, and I have this graphic that I use in a keynote presentation where, you've got your funnel and you have new leads coming in the top of the funnel. And hopefully 30% of them that come through the funnel are going to come out the bottom as customers. 2/3 to 3/4 of them end up going out the side as leakage, right? So you've got
Right.
top of the funnel, you've got throughput, they come out as customers, they leak along the way. We know a bunch are going to leak. The problem is that there are sometimes are too many new leads coming in the top to where they actually spill out the top. That's spillage. That's
Yeah.
100% waste.
Yeah.
So now you're wasting effort. That's no good.
Yeah.
Right. And so, if it's just a numbers game, then what you're going to find is a bunch of times that you're using math to get lucky instead of using skill to make sales.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
And so I want to see enough customers coming in the top where a third, a quarter to a third come out the bottom as good customers. I don't want to see so much prospecting because it's all a numbers game to where
Yeah.
we're wasting effort and spillage is occurring as a result.
Yeah. The other thing you talk about that I really enjoyed in the book, and I feel you could have made this probably your number one point if you wanted to in the 5 forgotten, but you put it last, and that's, you call it swagger.
Mm-hmm.
I say that's your mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and you talk about that. But let's talk about that, because I think that's big. If you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe in the product, then I think you're going to struggle. And I think that's what you're talking about in this part of the book.
Selling's hard. Uh, I mean, uh, like I just said, a quarter to a third of your deals are going to be successful, and those are the ones that are well qualified and engaging with you. How many contacts do you have to make, you know, in order to get those? Right? We
Right.
see most of what we do. It's a game of failures, and you have to be resilient in that. I think that means setting your expectations up front. I think that means recognizing that what you do is incredibly difficult and a lot of people don't want to do that. And so when you accept that going in, you can appreciate the wins for what they are and you let some of the losses slide off your back. You know, this is a game this is a game of consistent improvement. It's a game of, human connection. It's a game of learning from your mistakes. You're going to have days when, you're going to have weeks where you're working your tail off. You think a lot of great things are going to happen, and there are $0 results at the end. And then you will also have those days when you wake up and you see that someone placed an order overnight that you had nothing to do with, that will make the commission will make your mortgage payment this month, right? Like, you know what I mean? So I think the swagger is so much about recognizing that you perform your best when your mindset is in the right place, but also making sure to manage your expectations, knowing that it's difficult, but that it's worth it. And if you don't love the struggle, if you can't embrace that struggle, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
When you embrace the struggle, you appreciate the wins so much more. So
Especially in a long sales cycle.
oh man, a lot of sales cycles are long,
Yeah.
and I think that the process is worth it. The process makes it worth it. Your experience and the things you learn along the way. Like if you can't learn to love losing, but it's not a failure because you've learned something that'll prevent you from making that same mistake in the future. Some people think I'm a sociopath for looking at things that way, right? But I think if you've been in this game long enough, you recognize that that's what it takes to succeed. And that's not just what it takes to cope. That's what it takes to succeed.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, at the end of that chapter, I put a little, just kind of a pull quote that I've got as a graphic you can download on the website. I'm trying to get it formatted so you can make it the home screen on your phone. But the quote says, I'm the best in the world at what I do. And the really scary part is I'm only half as good as I'm ever going to be. And that's the mindset you have to take on a day-to-day basis. Whatever
Yeah.
happens today, I'm going to learn from it. I may win, I may lose, I may do a lot in between, but I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to grow from it. I'm going to be better for it tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And the best thing about that statement is that it is always true.
Yeah.
You're only half as good as you're ever going to be. And you're the best in the world at what you do, the way you do it right now. And I tell people, say it once and you'll smile and, oh, that's cute. Say it 10 times, you start to believe it. Say it 20 times, you get a little fire in your belly. Say it 100 times before you leave the house, you'll run through a brick wall for whatever you're going to do that day.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
My favorite quote that you used in that book is Dr. Seuss.
Oh,
that's a classic quote.
I'm trying to think. I was reading, The Places You'll Go, to my kids. This is a long time ago because they were little. They're 11 and 9 now. They were probably 4 and 2 when I started reading it to them. And, if you've read that book, the illustrations are a little on the wild side. And so I think the kids used to, they used to like listening to me read that because of the crazy pictures in it as much as what the words were saying.
Yeah.
But I remember reading it to them on almost a nightly basis and really appreciating what was being said. And Dr. Seuss put this in there twice. And I think it's the only thing it's the only thing he put in there twice. And he said, except when they don't, because sometimes they won't.
Yeah.
It's just the admission of, you know what? I did all I could do. And that was all I could do. And it wasn't good enough. Okay. That's not a reflection on me. It's like, John, you and I both play golf. Sometimes you go out there and you shoot your best score, but someone else does too.
Yeah.
And how many times you see someone, we just saw this a couple of weeks ago, Dustin Johnson at the PGA, and he's leading the tournament going into the final day, and he goes out and shoots 68, and he finished second, tied for second. And at the end of the day, he's like, I don't know, I didn't win it. It would have been nice to win it, but it's not like I choked. I shot 68.
Yeah.
This other kid comes behind me and shoots 64. What are you going to do? Sometimes it's just his day. And, he's like the epitome of just letting stuff ride off his back. He just lets it roll. And, he's won 22 times in his 12-year career or something like that. It's ridiculous. He's a Hall of Famer already. And people are hung up on some of the things that he hasn't done, forgetting about some of the things that you have. And that's the whole point of swagger. And no one's got swagger like DJ does, right? He just kind of saunters around. Like he's got this whole embodiment of that. And he is in total control all the time. And that's kind of the thing that you have to have. You got to let that stuff roll off your back. You got to celebrate the wins. But even when you celebrate the wins, you got to remember that there's more work to do, because this whole process is worth executing on. It's worth undergoing. It's worth doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I've got one more question for you, but before we tackle this last question, tell the listeners best way to get in touch with you, the best places to go to get in touch with you, how to get these ebooks and all your contact stuff.
I'm going to give you two places. You can go to jeffbajorek.com, just my first name and my last name.com. Everything I have is there. Okay. If you want a little bit more, I've got a community that I'm building at rethinkthewayyouSell.com. And right now it's an online platform on a Mighty Networks platform. It's kind of like its own social media network. You can connect with other people. You can post things. You can respond to posts. I like to think of it as an interactive mailing list, right? Like you want to shoot me a message. You want to, you want to comment on one of my posts or, any of the other little things that I'm doing on a daily, weekly basis, go there. And I ask the audience questions and I just engage with people differently there. I'm trying to do something that's just more engaging and can bring me a little bit more connections with the people that want to follow me. So jeffbajorek.com or rethinkthewayyouSell.com. They're both connected. So you can check that out.
Yeah. All you listeners, get there, get to that website, download this ebook, and then you'll also have the chance to, if you choose to get on his mailing list, you get great weekly information from Jeff. So make sure that you do that. Last question. So from a prospecting standpoint, if you were going to leave the listeners with one sales vitamin today, one prospecting sales vitamin, I know that's probably tough because there's a lot, seeing that how you're an expert on that. But what's one sales vitamin you'd leave the listeners with today about prospecting?
It's not about you. Um, it's not about you. And that means that you have to put yourself in your prospect's shoes. And that means that you have to think about whether or not the same message you used for the last 25 is still going to be applicable to them. And maybe you need to tweak some things, particularly right now, right? In the middle of a pandemic. Everybody's
Yeah.
responding to this pandemic differently. Pandemic fatigue, Zoom fatigue, family fatigue, cabin fever fatigue, like it's all setting in. The messaging that you used 6 months ago, not going to work right now. You've got to appear more human. You've got to appear more empathetic, which means you need to be more human and be more empathetic, right? So put yourself in your prospect's shoes. What are they going through right now? And how can you help them? And it's not about what you have. It's not about you. It's not about your company. It's about the problem you can help them solve. Hopefully, in a way, you can solve it in a way that's different from the way your competitors will solve it. And that's going to make the biggest impact. So think about them. Stop thinking about yourself.
Awesome. All right. Sales vitamin there. You got a whole year's worth of jar full of sales vitamins right there. This whole episode is just going to be fantastic. So Jeff, thanks for coming on, man. This is going to be great. I can't wait for people to hear this and just all the information that you've given them today, not only on prospecting, but just sales in general. So I appreciate you taking the time today to spend with us.
Humbled to be asked. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet.